Hey everyone, welcome to the Gear Priority Podcast. My name is Justin, and today we have a special guest. This guy and I have spent a lot of time talking about ultralight and cottage backpacking gear. He's so passionate about the subject that he went and founded a company to sell ultralight backpacking gear, Garage Grown Gear, which is my favorite online store and one-stop shop for ultralight gear. Every episode on this podcast is going to have some sort of overarching question that I want to answer, and today is no exception. So let's bring in Lloyd, and let's get talking about ultralight gear that is disrupting the world of backpacking. Hey Lloyd, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
It's going great, Justin. It's good to be here.
Where are you calling in from? I think a lot of people might not know too much about your personal life, so let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. Let's talk about my personal life. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Garage Ground is just across the river over in St. Paul. So, south of you, but still relatively far north. It's exciting just to be on the pod.
Yeah, I think it's going to be cool. I think I'll tease a little bit here just for the people at home that this is going to be a reoccurring thing. We've chatted about it, and we're really excited to partner for one episode a month. So the first episode of every month is going to be a Garage Grown Gear Just Outdoors podcast episode where we talk to cottage brands to kind of tell their story, as well as just dive into the world of ultralight and cottage gear. I think that you and I spend a lot of time chatting about gear on various cell phone calls. But before we kind of dive into that, let's go through we do a rapid fire question every with every guest. So we'll do it for this episode. I don't know if we'll do it for other episodes. Maybe we'll get you to rapid fire question me on the next episode. But just do 5 quick questions here. First one being, what's your favorite freeze-dried meal?
That's a really good question. I was such a big fan of Food for the Soul and all of their meals. They had a miso broccoli that I absolutely loved, and I think that was my favorite backpacking meal I've ever had. R.I.P. Food for the Soul. They closed last year. So I think I'm still searching for like a new favorite meal because nothing has quite replaced that for me. But I would say that
that's sad to hear.
It is.
About Food for the Soul.
Yeah, legitimately felt like a loss for the industry. But I would say that probably a close competitor would be the Zesty Zoodles from Bushka. As a vegetarian, I feel like there's only so many different meals in the market that really are substantive and tasty, and that's definitely one of them.
Nice. Yeah, I've tried the Zesty Zoodles. They were my favorite of the Bushka's meals, but they're pretty good. But Food for the Soul, like no one was doing what they were doing with kind of the cold soaking salad type meals, and they're delicious. I ate those a whole bunch on the Great Divide Trail, and really sad to hear that they're gone. Hopefully someone kind of picks up that kind of style of meal for the future. But second question, what's your biggest fear?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a big one. To be honest or not to be honest type of question. I'll go with the top 5 fear. I think it's probably like not actualizing as a human. I feel like for a lot of time, and like maybe you can relate to this too, we're similarly aged humans who I think have had like some similar life experiences and overlaps of I think for a lot of your life, you're kind of this little bundle of potential that everyone tells that you can kind of do things or you can do whatever, or you spend all this time in school trying to like gain information to do something with it. And I think largely like this is a dumb story, but I had a guy who I went to college with who at one point told like one of my friends that he was a waste of potential. And I thought that was like one of the meanest things that one could say about somebody. And I think I've kind of like always remembered that as like I feel like like I think my biggest concern would be just to not fulfill some internal sense of what my own potential is, even if I don't really know what that is. Probably tied into some fear of disappointing others too, but wanting to do the best.
I feel like that's like I think we're kind of right in the middle of like the millennial generation, and I feel like that's a common one. Like especially with boomer parents, it's like the fear of failure tied in with wanting to to reach our potential is a big one, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. All right, number 3, biggest bucket list backpacking trip.
That's a really good question. I mean, I feel like I would say the PCT is something that I have always held in my brain as something that I would really like to do. And I feel like I have no idea when I'm going to be able to make that happen or if I'm going to be able to make that happen. But it's a space that I've always kind of idealized in my brain as I haven't hiked any of the major long trails. I've done some small section hikes of the AT and spent a little bit of time on the PCT. Yeah, I feel like if I don't think I have any ambition of triple crowning. Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time conceptualizing that within kind of my current existence. But the PCT feels like if I'm going to be able to do a long trail, that would be one that really encapsulates a lot of the beauty and the trail culture and community. So I think that would be my bucket list choice.
Yeah, I think PCT. If I was going to pick of the 3, I'd be very tempted to go CDT, but it doesn't have the same kind of trail community as the PCT does. So if you are looking for that experience in it, I don't think you'll get that on the CDT as much. Whereas AT is kind of the complete opposite direction. You're getting that in bucket loads, whereas maybe the PCT is a nice balance between the two. So that's a good one. That's a long time. 4 or 5 months out on trail is
A lot of time. I mean, the longest I've been on any form of trip was like a month and a half. And I don't know, like my brain just like doesn't do particularly well, I think, with that long of time on trail. And granted, that particular trip was a backcountry trip up in the Brooks Range, and that was a lot of solitude. You're getting free supplies by float plane. You're stopping in one town that is up there. So I think that is a slightly different style of trip, but it's my only real comparison point. So I'd be concerned about kind of not. I mean, I'm sure I'd be concerned about the physical element too, but just the emotional challenges of just being in your head for a couple of months seems exhausting.
uh, yeah, you come out of it with a lot of thoughts, especially if you're journaling. It's interesting to go back and look at that. It's kind of crazy. Okay, 4th question: favorite snack on trail.
I kind of constantly snack. I'm definitely I don't really like wake up and eat meals. I'm kind of a like all day type of snacker. Like usually like dinner is really the only thing that I kind of like formally eat. And I fluctuate a lot between like bars, really just like anything. Like I think it's less about what my favorite one is and more of just the variety. Like I have certain things that like I absolutely cannot eat. And like some of it even tastes good, but like the taste of it or the smell of it like conjures up some like low point on like a 30-mile day where I just like want to be done, and I eat that thing, and then for whatever reason like I can no longer eat that thing because it just conjures up like a terrible feeling. So I have to diversify a ton, from like salty to sweet to goos to gels to like a little bit of everything. Definitely like candy is like a big one for me. Well, I used to guide.
If you don't have a favorite, it's just getting the variety of snacks so that you don't get sick of one. I'm there with Larabars. I can't eat another Larabar because I ate
Really?
like probably 300 Larabars in 3 months at one point, and then it was like, no more Larabars.
No, I do that with when I used to guide a lot. I would bring the candy like reasons, and so when I had high schoolers that like needed a reason to hike, I would give them a reason, literally. And of course, high schoolers, it was very on the nose, but high schoolers, of course, that's the cringiest thing in the world, and they also like kind of love it. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And the final one, we've asked everyone, so we're gonna have to compile the stats on the answers to this question. But toilet paper or backcountry bidet on trips?
a third option, I usually use leaves or rocks, and that's about it. If I'm in a place that has latrines, like if I'm on the SHT, like I haven't really experimented with backcountry bidets. We've got a bunch of people in the shop that like, will swear by bidets, but I'm a leaf rock stick guy. Maybe that puts me in a small minority of humans, but yeah. That's what I
If we compiled the stats, you'd be the only rock stick user so far. Out of we've had 8 people on so far, and none have been. I don't think any have been bidet users. They've all been toilet paper users, and then you're the first rock stick user. So we'll have to add that third option in there. I'll make a note of that to include it.
Well, I'm honored to be a thought leader amongst that.
Disrupting the world of ultralight backpacking. Don't even bring a bidet.
Don't need it.
I was gonna say shove a stick up there, but that's probably the wrong approach to.
It definitely requires a little bit of nuance. Like you don't just pick any rock, you pick any stick. It requires the same type of LNT principles that you use normally. It requires certain specific locations to be able to be specifically successful. And in some areas, obviously, that's not even a possibility. But
yeah, I think I'm gonna have to. I'm trying to plan an episode with Miranda about poop, so I'll have to get her thoughts on that.
Yeah, that would be. I feel like that if anyone was gonna write the definitive truth on that, it would be both of you.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone else in the YouTube world talking about poop as much as Miranda and I. So it'd be a good
talking about thought leaders.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so those are the rapid fire. Let's kind of talk a little bit more about you, as well as kind of how this all fits together, because some people might be wondering kind of how we got to know each other, why this kind of just makes sense. But before we dive into that, maybe just tell us kind of how the Garage Drone Gear thing started and how you fit into the Garage Drone Gear store as a whole.
Well, Garage Drone's about a decade old right now. I think we kind of have a couple of different iterations of kind of how we've grown and evolved over time. But my business partner, Amy Hatch, started Garage Drone out in the Teton Valley area of Idaho. In 2013, so a decade ago at this point. And kind of just with the overall idea of supporting small brands, not even specifically there were definitely ultralight brands that were on the site at that point, but it was a little bit more general than that. There were, some climbing brands, some biking stuff, but, and that was kind of where her interest and passion lied. And around that same time, I had started a different company that purchased basically custom made stuff and stocked it. So, you could buy Luke's ultralight stuff and it would ship, the next day instead of waiting for a month and a half. Way longer. And then I was aware of Garage Grown. She was kind of vaguely aware of what I was doing, and I was doing it on a much smaller scale while I was also still teaching high school special ed. So it was very much a side project. And she was kind of looking for someone to take over Garage Grown or buy it. Definitely couldn't buy it, but I was kind of looking for a route out of teaching. So we ended up driving out to Idaho, meeting up with her, it being a good fit. And so I loaded up all of the inventory that was in Idaho in the back of my Honda Fit and drove it from Idaho back to St. Paul and put it in my basement. And Garage Ground was, not in the garage, but it was in my basement for, the first 2.5, 3 years of being in Minnesota. And kind of as that happened, just as it happens with anyone who's kind of leading something, you infuse your own passions and ideas into it. And for me, that was specifically ultralight backpacking. So kind of in me taking over the company, I really steered it hard towards the areas that I was interested in, which is the niche of ultralight and the niche of cottage brands. So we kind of just laser locked onto that and really tried to build a platform that was an all-encompassing one-stop shop, a place that, loves ultralight backpacking and uses our platform to tell stories about companies that we think are cool and interesting and doing stuff that's different. So, yeah.
A question that I've had a couple of people ask me, and I know there's certain places that I go to try and find new brands, but you gotta take it to the next level. You're discovering these cottage brands, when they're really tiny, and bringing some really cool ones in. How do you find them, or do they find you? Are you just scrolling Etsy, like searching Etsy and trying to find these backpacking brands? How does that work? Is it? Yeah, curious about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit about like I try to be as inquisitive as I possibly can be. It's finding brands on Instagram that like don't have a website but are like making some stuff that looks cool and that looks unique. A lot of brands, a lot of like people that don't consider themselves to be brands, but are like they themselves are just trying to figure out what to do with what they're doing. Um, so yeah, that's Etsy, that's Reddit, that's Facebook groups. And then at this point, it's kind of cool. Like when we started off, a lot of it was like me knocking on doors and being like, "Hey, like we're starting this thing. Do you want to be a part of it?" And now it's a lot of people being like, "I have this concept and this idea that is, not fully fleshed out yet, but we'd love to be able to talk about how to interface with GarageDrone." So, I think at like any given point in time, there's like probably 15 to 20 different brands that or like people that we are kind of just sussing things out with. And sometimes it takes 2 years before, someone is able to actually get a product onto GarageDrone because they just like, have another job or like have a kid and then like kind of put it on pause for a little bit or like don't have any production to be able to actually sell to us. So yeah, it's a little bit of like just us being in all the spaces and kind of lurking around the internet trying to sleuth for stuff. And then also people just recognizing that GarageDrone is a platform that could be really beneficial for them and them proactively reaching out to us.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting as far as like I think a big something that makes it a little bit easier probably is that you're an easy guy to talk to. You're approachable. So I think these brands are it probably makes it a lot easier for them to approach you, and they see that GarageRoom Gear is a pretty kind of like welcoming, open place. So it doesn't seem like there's as many like barriers to kind of work with you. I think based on some of the stories you told me, like you guys are pretty flexible about working with brands and kind of doing things a little bit outside the norm compared to like maybe some of the giant retailers that carry more of the mainstream brands out there. So that's pretty cool.
Kind of have to be, which is like a fun thing to be in. Like, yeah, we definitely like work with brands that like other places won't work with. And that's because it's not a straight line. It's not like some formulaic process that you can just say like, if you want to work with us, you have to fall within these parameters. Because if we did that, then we wouldn't be really able to work with people. And I think some people we kind of fluctuate between people thinking that we're way bigger than we are and also way smaller than we actually are. And I don't like mind that as a narrative, but yeah, like we don't have paperwork around when we take on new brands. Like we don't like lock people into any contracts or like no one signs anything. And I don't know, like it's a lot more informal than that. It's a lot more fluid than that. And that is definitely where the fun of it comes from, is just as much as like people have really human experiences with like, the brands that they buy stuff from on like, if you're buying a custom pack from Dandy Packs or, you're getting an alpha fleece from Farpoint, like, that's a pretty human interaction. Like we have those same interactions with the brands. Like when I'm emailing Joe at Farpoint, it's like, how many fleeces can you make for us this month? Like he doesn't know, I don't know. Like it's an ongoing thing. And that's, I think we try to portray that as a platform of like, yeah, like we do things because of the relationships that are behind them. And we try to be a kind of a mommy and poppy place on the internet where people really do feel welcome. But we try to do that as professionally as we possibly can while still being something that, yeah, doesn't feel exclusive or unapproachable.
Yeah. And I think that connection with the brands, I find that it transfers through. So like you said, it's like if you have that interaction with a cottage brand that's making you like a custom pack or something, it's kind of a unique experience. And I think that still that kind of cottage brand relationship still kind of translates through with GarageDrone Gear. And if people haven't checked out, if they really like a brand or something on the site, and they can actually click the brand name and get like usually a little bit of a story and background behind them. There's some pretty cool information there. I've definitely found some interesting stories through there, and that's something that, like I said with the podcast, we really want to be kind of bringing those stories out, and some of these people who we want to chat to, who are cottage designers and engineers, that we're probably gonna have to kind of pull them out of their shell a little bit. They're in their garages, kind of hunkered down, designing stuff, but a lot of them have really, really cool stories and come from really interesting places, and their thought processes and how they're designing gear and figuring out problems. Like there's some unique people out there doing some really cool things. So I'm really excited for that. But I wanted to ask you a question, Lloyd. Do you remember the first time we chatted? This is like what's that? There's a bridal game. I know my fiance Steph was just at her bachelorette party because we're getting married in 2 months now, and they asked both of us questions about our relationship, and one of them was like, when did you guys first meet, and like all these other things. We actually got the first meet one wrong because she answered when we first encountered each other, which was we were playing soccer against each other, and she flew across the field and body checked me off the ball. That was the first time we encountered each other. The first time we met was later when her sister introduced her to me because her sister was dating my best friend, so it was kind of this whole tangle. But
Listen, we shared our encounter. My first interaction with my wife was also through playing soccer. Yeah, and I think we would also not consider that to be our first encounter because it was like on a soccer field. But yeah, he's way better than me at soccer. So while I don't think she didn't knock me off the ball or anything, I think I was not anywhere near it at the point.
Steph's super competitive, so she saw me like going up the field, and she was like, "Not again!" And then it came Abby. And then my entire team was laughing at me on the sidelines because she's not a very large person, and I'm quite a bit bigger than her.
But no, I hate to say this, but I don't actually remember the first time we chatted. I mean, it was years ago at this point, but it's something you do.
It was when you're still working with Enlightened Equipment, so you're doing kind of just like you're interacting with people as like from like a marketing standpoint, and I had just started my YouTube channel. You guys had given me 25% off a quilt, and then I was like, take a look at it, using it, and then I sent an email being like, I need to talk to someone. I have so many questions about this quilt. And then we got on a call, and I just berated you about all the flaws in quilts and everything, and it was just like I was definitely just I was just taking reviewing gear way too serious at that point in time, and just trying to find the nitpickety, is that even a word? Nitpickety little problems with the quilts. And I was, yeah, at this point, I just made a video about how everything that I kind of thought about quilts back then was kind of wrong. But yeah, that was the first time. Is you just kind of like being like, yeah, well, we don't really have any problems. We don't hear any problems about that. But thanks for passing on the feedback.
I remember I did pass it along to Enlightened Equipment's R&D at the time, as like I have no idea what to do with this information, but I will do something with it.
Yeah, that was the first time, and then I think just for context for people at home, then we just basically have kept in touch ever since. And then you went full time with Garage Run Gear, and then we just kept kind of building our relationship, chatting. Now we chat like every couple months, and Garage Run Gear is a sponsor on the YouTube channel, which is awesome, and I really appreciate it. And I think our brands just kind of really fit together. Like we're all about ultralight gear, love cottage brands and innovation, so it just kind of makes sense. And when the podcast was getting started, it just made a lot of sense to kind of merge our resources in order to, like I said, tell the stories and just tell the stories of college brands and discuss cool and innovative gear that those brands are creating. So
I was stoked about it. I mean, yeah, it's been fun. Like, I don't know. It's like you have good relationships with brands and having good relationships across the industry. Like, it's all part of this little ecosystem that we all find ourselves in, and that, the people listening to this podcast also find themselves as a part of. Like, I don't know, that relationship part is just so key. Like, yeah, I think a lot of times when people think of folks working with influencers or YouTubers or media folks, I think they kind of like look at it. They can look at it from an angle of being like, oh, this is just some kind of I don't know, like more of it's like a marketing play instead of what. And I think in some cases it is that. But one of the cool things about like Garage Grown Gear's relationship with Justin Outdoors and my relationship with you is that it's been one that like has been really intentionally done in a win-win-win where we have like, I don't know, hour plus long conversations about random stuff. Sometimes it's related to, more business side of things, but in other worlds, it's not. And there's like, just like a really good world where, that kind of like partnership is just a really organic way in which things kind of click for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I think you nailed it with win-win-win. That's whenever I look to work with brands, that's the key. And you guys kind of set the benchmark for what that looks like as far as I think for both of us, probably like the customer / audience being like kind of the number one win, and then each of us being kind of the secondary winners in that scenario as well. I think it just all works out. And before we kind of get into, I did promise everyone we're going to talk about some gear questions and things that, because we see a lot of gear, and we, especially you probably see even more than I do at this point with your warehouse packed with different brands and everything. But what sort of gear is disrupting the industry and the world of backpacking? And I think I think every episode that we do, we'll try and tease some new gear that might be coming to Garage Run Gear in the upcoming months. So if you guys are interested in that, then definitely stick around. But before we get into that, if you guys enjoy this podcast, make sure you go and leave a review. It really helps everything out and kind of gets the podcast out more on the different platforms. So I'd really appreciate that. So, Lloyd, ultralight gear that is disrupting the world of backpacking. I have 3 down here that I wrote down, but what's doing that for you right now?
I mean, one of the things that has just been selling like crazy, and I think people have really kind of found a little bit more of mass market appeal over the last couple of years, is just Polartec Alpha in general. I think it's, initially it was kind of a little bit of a I don't know, it was just such like a new thing, and people didn't really know what it was. It was such a novel concept. But I think it's really been neat to see how popular it's become, how extremely functional it is as a fabric. Like, it's definitely not for everyone, and that's totally fine. I don't think most ultralight backpacking things are for everybody. But just the versatility of both being like something that can be extremely breathable as well as something that can be extremely insulating. I find it to be like a very just kind of nuanced fabric. I think a lot of people either responded or like, what is this? This is the stupidest thing. Like, you can literally see through it. Or people are like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is going to be my, mid layer / base layer / whatever for whatever I'm doing. And I definitely end up in that camp. And, like Senchi Designs, I think really like laid the foundation, at least within the cottage industry, for what this could kind of look like. And, there's been other brands like Farpoint that have really kind of done their own stuff with it, as well as Vado and a couple of other brands that have kind of stepped into the alpha space. But it's something that's, definitely disrupting, and definitely something that has, I think will only continue to become more and more popular. So that'd be one.
I think we saw a lot of like stagness in fleece for a very long time. Like, we had just your traditional polar fleece that people are probably used to seeing like at Walmart and stuff. And then we have, although I think that's like a polar fleece is probably Polartec's like kind of like brand name for it. Though we kind of saw some of the grid fleeces coming about, and now with the Alpha Direct fleece, it's not the most, like, it doesn't feel the most durable, but if you're not, it is surprisingly durable. I've had a piece for a very long time with a lot of use, but it's like you said, it's super versatile, especially if you pair it with something like a wind shell or like a rain jacket or some sort of shell over top of it. It becomes insanely warm once you cut that breathability aspect down. But then because it's so breathable, it becomes a lot more versatile at the same time. And you have all the drying factors and moisture management of fleece as well. It's, yeah. With Alpha Direct, there was a lot of supply issues before. Like, you'd have to jump on like Senchi's drop and it sold out within 3 minutes, and Farpoint was selling out all the time. Like, it has Polartec increased their manufacturing of the fleece, or are we still seeing those supply chain issues?
I guess I can't speak to that perfectly. I know some brands have had issues uh with sourcing Polartec Alpha, but I don't really know. I feel like more so the hiccup was just kind of in young brands trying to figure out what the demand was for this product. Of like, Squinty initially was making all of their products in house, and they just like couldn't make enough to be able to sell. So there was, an instant sellout, and they really scaled up their production. I think all their stuff is still made domestically. Actually, I'm positive it is, but like they're not sewing out themselves anymore, so they're able to do bigger drops because they were able to scale up because of that initial demand. And I know like Farpoint, they've also just really scaled up what they're doing, from going from Joe just being the only guy who sews these to they're shipping us like 200 to 250 fleeces a month. Like, I think they're crushing it. So I think a lot of it has just been like, initially there was a lot of testing of the market of like, is this even something that we should really lean into? And then both like Ryan at Senchi and Joe at Farpoint, both of those guys like weren't starting off with this being their full-time thing. Like, Ryan was, I think, in nursing school as he was like launching Senchi, and I think he just had no idea what this was gonna turn into. And I think Joe is like trying to constantly keep up with demand, of which seems like it's impossible because there's just continuous demand for it. So it might have been, and it might continue to be, some issues with sourcing the fabric, but I think it is also just like a capacity thing.
That makes sense, yeah, because Polartec's they're not a small company, and they can probably pump out fleeces pretty quick if the orders are coming in. But like you said, like these cottage brands, that they start off in their garage or in their basement, and they don't know what the like, they're probably not doing a ton of market analysis before launching their product, and then it's just all of a sudden, oh, this sold out. Oh, it's sold out again. It's sold out every single time within 5 minutes that I put this out there. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, like I can either make this a business or not. And I think that's something I'd be interested in discussing with brands down the road, is kind of like that thought process and that tipping point of when they're like, okay, we're going to make this into a business versus I'm going to continue with nursing school and just kind of continue this as a side hustle, which I think there are some brands like Garage Your Own Gear where they went that way more so than let's turn this into a full business, right?
It so much comes down to like, what are your priorities as a person? Like, are you trying to grow a business that you are like a part of 24 hours a day? Like, running a small business is absolutely exhausting, and if you want that to be your full-time gig and you want to dive into that, that's awesome. And we have a lot of brands that do that, and we have a lot of brands that decide to not do their own production, and either that's domestically or internationally, because it's just exhausting. And like, most of the brands in our space that exit the space aren't because it's like not working, it's because it's tiring, or like they have a kid, or like something comes up in their life where they're like, I actually just can't work for 80 hours a week on this thing. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is like, it's exhausting being a cottage brand. We're not a cottage brand, but we're a small retailer, and it's it's exhausting at times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, running a business is exhausting. I don't think there's anyone else out there who has done it who wouldn't agree with that. But we'll alternate. I'll do a gear item here, and then you can do your second one. So this one's probably not going to be a surprise to anyone who kind of knows me or has followed the YouTube channel, because I've been trying not to like talk about this too much, but I can't help it because it has been such a big deal for me. But that's a backcountry bidet. I think like the Kulo Clean's kind of the easy one to pull out and talk about, because it's really accessible, and I think it's become like a top seller for you guys now as well. But after the Great Divide Trail, where I was just using toilet paper, I was dealing with like chafage and just like not feeling super clean. So I was having to like have little butt baths essentially like every couple days. Whereas the Kulo Clean, I just have that every single day now with the backcountry bidet, and it's quite nice. And I figured it out. Like I've talked about in a couple of videos where my initial tests, I ended up with like trying to squirt too aggressively, and that just like explodes everything. into the world, which isn't the most pleasant. But once you kind of get it all figured out, the pressure and like, yeah, I'm a big fan of the Kulo Clean and the backcountry per day now.
Did you try it out at home beforehand, or did you just like get on trail and you're like, this is what I'm gonna do?
So this might be too much information, but that's what this podcast is all about is really diving deep. I haven't shared this on the YouTube channel, so if you guys follow the YouTube channel and you want to get these next level tidbits, then this is the place to do it. But so I tried it in the shower, and that's how I know it created the poo explosion, because it was all over the back of the shower. Luckily, I was facing the right direction. It was just, and you could see it. Whereas if I was outside, I probably wouldn't have known that as well, that everything just exploded everywhere. But yeah, that's what happened.
There needs to be a premium content side of this for specifically this type of stories.
Yeah, the OnlyFans segment.
Could I pay to not be a part of that?
Yes, yeah, the reverse sponsorship. All right, let's go to your number two.
I put fast pack style packs, vest strap packs. I think I think it's a natural direction for ultralight to be able to go. I mean, there's so many reasons why I gravitate towards ultralight. I think there's so many reasons why it's becoming increasingly popular amongst more mainstream backpackers. But I think vest straps are great for when you move faster, and when you have lighter gear, you are able to move faster. And when you have vest straps and packs that are specifically designed for that, plus lower base weights, it just kind of all makes a lot of sense. So, I don't think it's a particularly new concept, but it's kind of the fusion between trail running and backpacking. And yeah, feels like that's an area where there has been a lot of growth. I think will continue to be a lot of growth, and just makes like a very, very comfortable experience.
I would not be surprised if every pack manufacturer, like more on the cottage side / like mid cottage, has at least two vest style packs, like an ultralight, like hip beltless one, and then one that maybe has a hip belt, a removable hip belt that you can then use, maybe like a 30 liter and like a 45 liter or something like that. I think we'll probably see. I know I just love the accessibility. That's my favorite part of having the shoulder straps with the pockets on it. You have like your snacks, you can have like a satellite communication device, your phone, like everything's super accessible. And then I don't like carrying water on the front pockets, so I really like when I can still access the side pockets for my water bottles. But I know some people like to carry their water bottles on their on their shoulder straps too, and you can do that a lot easier with the vest style straps. And I found you can kind of increase your base weight a little bit, like compared to a traditional like J or S style shoulder strap. The vest style allows you to carry, I think you can, I've been able to get up to 30 pounds with the Zerg 40 with the vest style shoulder straps, because it just distributes the weight across your entire chest as opposed to just being on your shoulders.
Yeah, no. Support.
It's behind the scenes. I've kind of been talking to a lot of brands, pushing them towards vest style shoulder straps as well as side entry, side pockets. And then I never talked with Gossamer Gear, but they just released their Fastpack Kumo 36. And that does a lot of good things. Like I would love to see that pack in with a roll top and ultra fabric. And then I think I would have the perfect, and a bottom pocket, I'd have the perfect pack.
No, I think we actually have those en route right now, and I'm excited to give them a look, because I'm familiar with the OG Kumo, but this new one looks sweet.
I love they have a zippered zippered pocket on the left shoulder strap that kind of is like on a jacket. It's like it zips vertically instead of, you see a lot of like shoulder pockets and shoulder straps where you have to, if you want to put your phone into it, you have to put it in from the top. Whereas this is it's just like on a jacket. You just unzip it, slide your phone in, and take it out. I feel like a really good design for that kind of thing.
It's just those little things. Like I feel like that's such like I don't know, when I think about packs, or even when I think about like quilts, like I feel like the things that make me gravitate towards the ones that I love are such small details at this point. Like I don't know, like when people ask us about like what are the differences between all of these quilts all the time, and there's so much dialogue on Reddit and on Facebook about what is the best quilt, and like honestly, like the vast majority of them do pretty much the exact same. And like, so you're not going to go wrong with whatever company quilt that you buy, like pretty much. Like there's some that I think are better than worse, and I'll keep my opinions to myself. But, like largely, like there's just not that much difference, but it is those small design features that, for some, like when you've just dealt with enough gear, it's those things that really matter and they make you, excited about carrying that particular thing.
Yep. Especially once you kind of get, if you are a big gear nerd and you do like kind of like that tinkering aspect, then adding up those little things and trying to continue to like min-max and find the perfect gear for you is kind of half of the fun with it. Whereas, like you said, with a lot of people, they could pick a quilt brand, like put all the quilt brands on a board, throw a dart, and they're probably going to be fine with wherever it lands. You're going to get a good quilt.
It's still down,
It's down in nylon or polyester. It's
yeah.
One of the most basic things out there. Pack's a little bit more different, but even then, like if it has shoulder straps and has been tested out even a little bit, it's probably going to be fine.
Mostly a rectangle,
Yeah, exactly. The designers, they're probably smacking their heads right now, being like, "I spent 3 years designing the shape of this."
Well, I think that's the fun of it.
Lloyd just called it a rectangle.
I think that's the fun of it, is that like one can totally nerd out over all of the details of it while recognizing that like to be able to get outside, none of this is the thing that's going to deter you from doing it. But that part of the gamification of it and the reason why it is both a physical activity and a hobby is like because there is so much nuanced enjoyment to have in the planning of it. And I think if you could hold both of those truths, that like both a quilt, quilts can all be kind of the same, and like the details of it can be super fun to be able to, debate. Like you could do those things, and that's it's all good.
I don't think there's wrong with either. I think sometimes people get a little bit too up in arms about you have to either like care about the gear too much or not care about it at all, and it gets a little bit polarizing. But I think both can coexist in one world, and I think that's most of the fun.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like it on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Classic internet. So my second one, I probably should have put the Kulo Clean for number 2, just for that aspect of it. That was a miss, but it's old Dan Durston and his X-Mid tents. I think the fact that we've now seen multiple companies switch over to to polyester fabrics for their tents, like Tarp Tent. I think Mountain Laurel Designs just announced that they're switching over. I think it's kind of disrupting the industry in that way. And then even like Z-Packs just released a new duplex tent with a zipper, vents, and magnetic door toggles, which is straight from the X-Mid Pro 2 Dyneema tent. And like I don't want to say it like I think like Dan didn't really invent the wheel necessarily with a lot of these features. He just kind of put them all into one tent. And like I'm gonna get comments about this if I say Dan didn't invent the wheel, because in a lot of people's eyes, Dan invented the wheel and fire. but the pull structure and the geometry of the X-Mid tents is really unique. And I think he just put a lot of things together that now companies are seeing, and they're like, okay, I think he's got some good ideas. He's taking a lot of our market share. We should probably start incorporating some of these things into our products. And it's good. It's pushing a lot of companies that stayed pretty static on a lot of their products for a while. So it's cool.
Good choice. Props.
Yeah. If I hadn't said it, I have a hashtag now that I joke around with some people about just what about the X-Mid? If I don't mention Dan in every piece of content I create, I always get a question about it. So
Dan's a great guy. The community that loves Dan, is ferociously pro Dan and pro Durston, which is great. Like, what else could anyone ever want for a brand than a devoted group of people?
Yeah, and devoted's probably an understatement.
Yeah, true.
All right, what's your third one, Lloyd?
I put accessories in general, and I think this is like kind of a natural conclusion to a lot of people's ultralight journey. But I think, especially as ultralight backpacking has just proliferated into more spaces, like I know with my own personal journey, I went from, carrying a much more traditional setup to being super, super minimalist. And largely, I'm still kind of in that camp. But, I think you go from having too much to kind of having too little to finding a space that you can kind of occupy in between. And I think just kind of look at all these brands that like pretty much exclusively sell accessories. I think that's because, you get that 28-liter pack and you're like, okay, cool. Now that I've done that, how do I keep the other stuff that I need? Or like, maybe I do want a little bit of compartmentalization in my pack. Or like, maybe I do want my phone to be accessible. And so I think that, manifests itself in things like fanny packs. It manifests itself in things like shoulder pockets and stuff sacks and probably overstuff. I mean, definitely over stuff sacking and over dry bagging and like overly trying to turn ultralight packs back into, ultralight versions of more traditional packs. But I think that's kind of the fun is like you're over here and then you pendulum swing to a spot where you're like, this is a little too uncomfortable. And then you figure out where it kind of works for you in the middle. But I mean, sometimes that just means that people buy a different pack or, different gear. But I think oftentimes, and we've certainly seen it, it means that people are buying more stuff, and maybe that means a little bit more of a base weight. But it means kind of finding an equilibrium where they both feel like they are getting the enjoyment they want out of their gear and being able to do the things that they want to do. So accessories, accessorizing, all of those things seem to be on the massive uptick within ultralight spaces.
And the accessories are fun. I think what's cool about them is with a lot of them, it's a person seeing a very specific problem a lot of the time and then creating a very specific solution to it. And that's kind of has to do with my third one. And that's the one bottle system. If people aren't familiar, it basically turns a traditional water bottle into like a water bladder, but then you can keep the water bottle externally, like in your side pockets, run the tube up over your shoulder, and it makes it a lot easier to refill, check how much water you have left, and then have a water bottle for around camp. That was something that I'd never thought about with bladders. I stopped using bladders a lot, like probably 5 or 6, 7+ years ago. But one of the things that I had never really wrapped my head around, because at the time I always carried like a heavy Nalgene or something like that, was that if you're only using a bladder, once you get to camp, you have to either continue like going back to your pack to use the bladder or like carry it around with you. Whereas with the one bottle system, you just screw a cap on and now you have a portable water bottle, which is really nice. And I think just the way, I forget the name. Do you remember the name of the person who created one bottle?
Matt.
Dan?
I think it's Matt.
Matt. Okay.
Or not. I apologize, not Matt.
So yeah, sorry, Matt. We're gonna call him Matt. But I think Matt has an interest, and it's not so much just the one ball idea. I think that's great, but I think Matt has, based on what the detail that I've seen in his product, I could see him doing some cool things in the future as well, just with how he looks at different problems in backpacking. So really excited to kind of see where that goes and that brand goes down the road.
I'm surprised you didn't say, Mayfly sandals.
Yeah.
That'll be a different discussion for a different podcast.
Yeah, I think I want to see. I'm still waiting because like in the Canadian Rockies here, we have a lot of very popular trails and like people who are kind of in that, a lot of weekend warrior backpackers, like people who will go 2-3 times a year and really hit like some popular trails. And over the last couple of years, seen a lot of X-Mid tents start to like kind of work their way into that demographic. I'm still waiting to see if Mayfly sandals kind of work there. Like I'm waiting to see one on trail at camp at one of these like someone who has like a 50-pound pack, but then like Mayfly sandals. That's
I look forward to that day. We're about to
just the juxtaposition.
We're sending out a newsletter in like a week or so. That's like the 10 most controversial products on GarageGround, and the Mayfly sandals are by far the number one. Like,
was that? Do people just not kind of get that they're an ultralight product, or
people either love them or hate them? Like, there seems like there is like people either get the use case entirely or like, what is this? And yeah, like the reviews on our site are either like 5 stars, like I love this thing, like what a great alternative to like not bringing camp shoes, to like this is the most uncomfortable thing. Like, why would I ever bring this in compare? If they're comparing it to like, Chacos, yeah, it's not going to do it. If you're comparing it to nothing, which is what I'm comparing it to, I think they're phenomenal. And
Or wearing a soaking wet shoe because you had to cross a river right before you got to camp, and your shoes are wet. And
we'll have to bring on Johnny to, and he's a very fascinating guy in and of himself. But I feel like, yeah, I'm sure he would have a lot to say.
I've got a lot of comments from people about Mayfly sandals telling me that they're not good because they weren't able to hike with them. And I'm like, it's not the point. Yeah, it's like saying, oh, my shoe's not good because I wasn't able to cook food in it. Like, it's just not.
There's a comparison.
Bit of extreme. All right, Lloyd. So we got to the point. Time to share with some people some new gear that's coming to Garage Growing Gear. People want to. This is what's going to be coming down the road. But I think one of my favorite things is to check out the new gear page that you guys have, where as new gear gets released, you can check that out and get an idea of that. Is there a day? Is it kind of a constant that you put gear? Or is it like Fridays where it gets dropped?
I'd love to say that we were organized enough to have like specific drops and stuff, but no, it's pretty much just like whenever someone gets around to making a product page, that is when that product goes live. So we try to turn things around pretty quick because we don't have a ton of space and we don't like big boxes just kind of sitting in the doorway, just like unreceived. But yeah, we're kind of constantly like adding new and different things, and that new spot of the site like definitely is like, I don't know, my favorite to kind of gas. And it always feels like the most like pride point for us of like, yes, this is a new company that will now kind of be welcomed into the Garage Growing Gear fam. Yeah, we've got we kind of always have a lot of stuff in the works, but we've got a couple of new brands that I'm particularly excited about. Two pack companies that we have kind of been talking with for a while that are probably coming on the site within the next month or two, kind of depending on when they're able to get packs our way. But Virga Packing is one that I'm pretty stoked about. Neighborhood Packs is another. They're a brand that both of those kind of have been hanging out on the Instagram space here for a little while. I think mostly kind of like a direct sale through Instagram, but we're going to be stocking a handful of both of their packs within the next 2 months. Ounce Design is this dude Sinclair who makes these really sweet, super ultralight shelters that, yeah, I think are a specific use case. Like a lot of the stuff, it's not a shelter that's going to jive with everyone, but if you're looking for like ultralight minimalism at its best, these are going to be absolutely incredible.
Are they trekking pole tents or shelters, or yeah?
Minimalist of a shelter as one can get. Like there will be like that tent interior, at least at this point. I think it is. Yeah, I won't say the weight because I don't even remember what it is, but yeah, it's good and cool.
Are they Dyneema products?
It's a Dyneema product. Yep.
Okay, so probably under 200 grams. It might be under 200 grams for a Dyneema minimalist shelter. That'd be pretty cool.
It might be. He's definitely one of those like engineering designer types who is just like very fastidious about those types of things. And even just talking about him, like I know, you have a much higher gear IQ than I do, but yeah, he's definitely like the intentionality that he brings to his designs are pretty cool. And another brand that's popping on the site, we're gonna start working with Ridge Merino. Slightly like, I don't know, larger brand, but a little bit more established in the space. A lot of really high quality merino products, like very comfortable. We've been doing a lot of like, got a lot of samples in the course of the last month that we've been able to kind of ring through the Minnesota spring-ish. And pretty excited to add some new apparel onto the site, because that's an area that we just had a little bit underdeveloped for a while. But I imagine by the time this podcast comes out, there's probably like a bunch of new brands that are probably going to be in the works again. But those are 4 that I'm pretty stoked about here for the next couple months.
Sweet, that's exciting. I think I'm most excited for that tent brand. I'm gonna have to go check them out because I've been looking for like ultra minimalist shelter because we don't really have bugs in the Canadian Rockies most of the year here, so it's
You lucky.
yeah, I don't really need like the bug net for a lot of the time, and I'm trying to get down to like a 5 pound base weight for that can get me to around freezing temperatures, and that sounds like it might help the scenario.
We could talk.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks for coming on, Lloyd. I'm looking forward to basically sit down and chatting with you and with other people, cottage makers every month. And like I said, for the people at home, the first episode of every month is going to be in partnership with Garage Growing Gear, and I'll have links in the show notes if you want to go check out that new gear page, or in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube. Thanks for the chat, Lloyd. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. I'm stoked to be doing this with you.